There was a book that was published in 2008 called Beyond Homelessness. Within that book, there's a chapter uh, uh, called The Phenomenology of Home. And within that, there are eight characteristics of home. First, home is a place of permanence. Second, home is a dwelling place. Third, home is a place of embodied inhabitation. If you look around my office, it embodies who I am. It's got my stuff here. Home is a place of safety and refuge. Home is a place of stories and memories. Home is a place of orientation, and home is a place of affiliation and belonging. And so we've really built our model around community and those eight characteristics. Notice that none of them have anything to do with four walls and a roof. And it has everything to do with the things that actually make you and I whole as humans. And that's living in community.
Okay, Alan, welcome to the show. For anybody that isn't familiar with you, could you just give us a bit of information about who you are and the work that you do?
Yeah, so Alan Graham, founder or CEO of Mobile Loaves and Fishes, started 27 years ago in 1998, going out on the streets of Austin, Texas, in a catering truck to feed the homeless. And from that, we developed pretty deep relationships with the men and women that were on the streets and began to purchase gently used recreational vehicles in 2005 and lift people up off the streets into privately owned RV parks, and simultaneously began to dream about building basically an RV park on steroids. And so now we have this model called Community First Village. It is right now a 102-acre master planned community, uh, and we have 550 homes finished and built and people living in, and we're under construction on about 13 or 1400 more homes right now. Pretty incredible deal.
That's amazing. So you've taken over 500 people off the streets and given them homes and community in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, really, we've exceeded 1,000 over that time. People die, and uh, people, some, very few, move back with families. Uh, very few move to a different housing type model, and some just aren't ready to be off the streets, and uh, we have to let them go.
Wow. And you live there yourself. You're there right now.
Yeah, no, I do. I'm in my office in the village, but my wife and I live here full time.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. To get started, one of the questions that I was wanting to ask you is you've got a very unique definition of what home actually is. Can you maybe just give us what that definition is? Because it's very illuminating for what we're going to be talking about.
There was a book that was published in 2008 called Beyond Homelessness: Christian Faith and a Culture of Displacement, that had a big impact on us. And within that book, there's a chapter uh, uh, called The Phenomenology of Home. And within that, there are eight characteristics of home. First, home is a place of permanence. Second, home is a dwelling place. Third, home is a place of embodied inhabitation. If you look around my office, it embodies who I am. It's got my stuff here. Home is a place of safety and refuge. Home is a place of stories and memories. Home is a place of orientation, And home is a place of affiliation and belonging. And so we've really built our model around community and those 8 characteristics. I might have missed one, I didn't count them all. Um, but notice that none of them have anything to do with 4 walls and a roof. And it has everything to do with the things that actually make you and I whole as humans. And that's living in community.
You know, the, the really interesting thing about this is if you take that definition seriously, you could argue that the majority of people living in modern society are homeless because they don't have those 8 things in their place where they're living.
Well, if you look at the United States as an example, post World War II, we built all these neighborhoods, these suburban neighborhoods that were primarily connected by automobiles. The housing that was uh, built prior to World War II was all built around the human person uh, and the walkable human person. And we talk about our suburban environment, the homes that we're living in here, particularly in America, as being these hermetically sealed single family sarcophaguses with 8 foot tall privacy fences, sport court swimming pools, and barbecue pits in the backyard, and front porches that are about the size of an iPhone, and and they've isolated us and disconnected us, and they've become so large that our family members, our children, actually have their own bedrooms now. And so our children have become nearly homeless inside of a beautiful house.
Which is shocking. How has your own experience of life changed since you moved into that community? Like, is there much of a difference for you just being there and being in community all the time?
Well, uh, my wife and I raised our family in Westlake Hills here in Austin, Texas, and it's kind of one of the neighborhoods. It's a super zip code, uh, extremely wealthy people. We were on the lower end of that uh, spectrum, but uh, grew up in a pretty privileged, high end neighborhood with a beautiful home. Um, when my wife and I moved out here 7.5, nearly 8 years ago, the level of intimacy between my wife and I uh, increased by 10x. At the home in Westlake, we were doing our normal thing, getting up in the morning, what we call shit shower, and get dressed. And then we would leave, get in our cars, and then we'd be gone all day. Um, Here, we live in 400 square feet. We wake up in the morning, we have coffee together. She is a very vital part of the leadership team here. So we see each other throughout the day. Uh, Her office is just below where I'm at right now. I'm on the second floor of a building. She's on the first floor. Um, it's just incredible. And then I would say living in a community that is as diverse as the community that we live in. Westlake Hills was, uh, you know, culturally a diverse community, but not primarily white, upper income, uh, type of a community. Here, the community is extremely diverse, and so a lot of the stereotypes and biases that we have against each other um, just fell when you live with people and you get to know them in a very different way. I think it's a game changer for humans. So we always say if you want to restore together, you must live together. So
Interesting. Okay. And I'm sure you thought a lot about this. What would you say are the root causes that have been driving this sense of homelessness and disconnection in society? I heard you mention elsewhere about David Brooks' article on what is it? The nuclear family was a mistake.
Yeah, the nuclear family. Uh, the title of that article is "The Nuclear Family Was a Mistake," and it's really referencing the the Madison Avenue depiction of what a nuclear family looked like beginning around 1950 that ended in 1965, about a 15-year run. But all of the television programming, American television programming for sure, and I'm sure European programming, especially English programming, was centered around these families like Leave It to Beaver and Ozzie and Harriet, um, where there's these perfect families, and the woman worked at home, and um, it, there was never ever real true dysfunction within those families. And the advent of the TV dinner that you could just kind of throw in the oven and then throw in the microwave, and life became easy and joyful, and um, was really a fallacy. And so we believe that the single greatest cause to homelessness is the profound catastrophic loss of family. Number one, because I know in your family you have a drug addict, an alcoholic, or somebody battling a mental health issue. Nobody escapes that. And somehow we manage to deal with that. And for the overwhelming vast majority of people here in the United States, and same thing in Europe as well, profound catastrophic loss of family. So that's how we look at it.
Hmm. And I've also heard you mention that the advent of refrigeration played a role here too, which was an interesting point.
Well, if you go back 150, most communities worldwide were built on the coast, which is where food is. A lot of food in the ocean. And if you went out and had an extraordinary catch of fish, you had no way to store that fish. You had to share it with the community. And so once the advent of refrigeration began, it began to change, uh, how we looked at ourselves. We began to store our own fish and not share it with people. And so that began a very slow and insidious process of separating us from each other, and the purpose of actually being in community. Uh, and then we thought we could be all independent, and and in America, the idea of the individual rights paramount over the community rights began to really take root. Uh, that's led to a lot of the catastrophes that we see in the West today.
It makes me think, and this is just pure speculation, but people that are more isolated because they don't have their basic communal needs met, they're likely to try to meet those needs in other ways through consuming things, buying things, trying to satisfy them materially, as opposed to the ways we've found sustenance for thousands of years. You know.
Well, look at our hermetically sealed single family sarcophaguses that we call the American dream that we're living in, with 8 foot tall privacy fences, swimming pools, sport courts, barbecue pits. And now, every day, you can have Amazon drive up to your house and drop your goods off. You don't even have to get out and go anywhere. All you got to do is just stay on this thing all day long, and you think you're connected, but in reality, you are profoundly disconnected. I saw a piece on uh, CBS the other day, a little snippet from Steve Hartman that does feel good snippets around the country. And there was a school bus loaded with kids taking kids home from school. And the school bus driver had a heart attack and passed out while driving this bus, and it was moving. And one kid gets up and notices what's going on, grabs the steering wheel, able to put his foot on the brake and bring the bus to a stop before a disaster happened. And this was the only kid on that bus that did not have a cell phone. Everybody else had their cell phones and they're looking down at the cell phone, not paying attention to anything going on around them, not arguing with each other, not fighting, uh, not hanging out with each other, except this one kid was sitting there without a phone looking around. Only kid. And I thought it was a great metaphor of where we are today. It's a train wreck, and we're all on board, and it's crashing because we won't pull ourselves up from these cell phones. So here in this community, and we've got all the cell phone stuff going on here, but we live in tiny homes. People are coming out. People are connecting. People are breaking bread together. It's a pretty incredible place with dysfunction, by the way. It's not nirvana by any stretch of the imagination. So,
Yeah, I'd be worried if you were saying it was Nirvana. You'd be sort of like it would sound like you're trying to sort of promote a cult there, you know. But I appreciate how real you are about the realities of it. You've interacted with probably tens of thousands of people in the homeless community by this stage. Um, what would you say the prevalence of mental health issues are in the community? How much do these two things go hand in hand?
huge. I mean, it's a huge issue. I would. I mean, 65% of our neighbors here in the village self-report a mental health diagnosis. That's self-reporting. So it's in our humble opinion, anecdotally, it's far more than 65%. But this population that we deal with, the chronically homeless, the average time on the streets here in the village is about 9 years. So we're talking long term homelessness coming out of catastrophically broken families, uh, violent families, sexual assault families, just all kinds of everything that you can horribly imagine has happened to our neighbors, and then drugs and alcohol, both prescription drugs as well as illicit drugs and alcohol, uh, have had a profound impact on people's cognitive uh, capabilities over time. And we're an overdrugged nation, both from a medical point of view, prescription drugs, as well as the illicit drugs. So it's a huge issue.
For sure, for sure. Something that comes to mind for me here is I was at it was like an event, and it was a sort of like a debating discussion style forum, and the discussion that evening was about the root causes of homelessness. And at one point, one of the people there, she said a phrase along the lines of, we've got to separate between the deserving homeless and and then whenever she said, I was just like, I can't believe you've just said that. And then what I've heard you say is that nobody chooses, nobody chooses to be homeless, you know? And can I just get your thoughts here on this misconception that people have that homeless people might be lazy or whatever? Like, they're coming from situations where there's not a level playing field here, you know?
Well, what I like to tell everybody is that never, ever, ever in the history of mankind ever, however long we've been on this earth, ever, has a 12-year-old little boy or girl laid in bed at night in that twilight space between being awake and asleep, looking out their window at the starry, starry skies, and dreaming about their future, what they're going to be when they grow up. Never, ever has anybody dreamed about becoming chronically homeless and a prostitute and a drug addict. Um, and and that is not a dream. These are not choices. And what happens is that you and I naturally, as humans, become resigned to being who we are. I can tell you that when I was 12 years old, I had three dreams. Dream number one is I wanted to be a rock star. I played guitar. I was in a little band, and that's what I thought I wanted to be. Dream number two is I wanted to play football, American football, not soccer, what we call soccer. Uh, and I had a good middle school and high school, a decent little football deal. Uh, but I'm 5'8.5". I weigh 160 pounds. It was never going to be a reality. Um, and then I also love airplanes, and I thought I could become a jet fighter pilot someday. And here I am, almost 70 years old. And if a great AC/DC song comes on the radio, uh, guess who's on stage playing that guitar and singing that song? Me. If I'm watching a great American football game, there's a great play. Guess who's in that play? Guess who made that great tackle? Who made that great run? And if I see an F-22 Raptor screaming across the sky, guess who's in that cockpit flying that airplane today? And I know that I'll never be there. But whatever those little boy and girl dreams were, the embers of those dreams, who was there to pour the fuel on those dreams? The men and women that are chronically homeless, that were dreaming the same kind of dreams, instead of somebody pouring the fuel on those embers, the daddies were having sex with their little girls. The moms and dads were giving their little girls heroin to put them out so that they could have parties. The fathers were selling their sons to other men for sex. They were being beaten up. This is what was going on in their lives. Nobody that I have ever met in my life has chosen to be that. I've also found out very early on that being homeless is about the furthest thing from being lazy as one could possibly deal. That they're up and moving almost all day. God, it's exhausting. So I reject that argument completely. Just it's not true.
I know you've studied the life and work of Van Gogh quite a bit. Is there anything that we can learn from him that is applicable to the homeless community? And maybe the second part of this question would be, how do you sort of pour fuel on the dreams of the people within your vicinity to help them sort of get that creative and entrepreneurial energy out of them?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the reasons that I'm inspired by Van Gogh is that uh, there's been forensic stuff done around his life, and so there's uh, a lot of belief. I mean, we know that he was mentally ill. He spent a lot of time in insane asylums, Um and uh, we also believe that he was an addict. Uh, He started painting at the age of 27, committed suicide probably at the age of 37, and was a uh, abjectly a failed artist. Uh, Sold during his lifetime only one painting that we're aware of. Today, if you want to buy a Van Gogh, one of the masterpieces, uh, you're probably talking. Maybe it could go as high as $250 million. I don't know, some kind of crazy number. Doesn't matter. Tens of millions of dollars. But there's all of these letters between he and his brother Theo over the course of that 10 years. And had it not been for his brother, uh, uh, Vincent Van Gogh, would have just wallowed on the streets of, Amsterdam, maybe Paris, Europe, wherever he was. Uh, and maybe we wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to witness one of the greatest artists ever in the history of the world. And so my point is that we should be looking at everybody that's out there on the streets as if there is a Van Gogh inside of them. And what that Van Gogh is, we don't know. What purpose uh, can we help them discover or rediscover that puts them into a place of being productively valued in our society? And that's what we do. Uh, we have artists that are creating beautiful art. I have several pieces here in my office right now that have been done by uh, both chronically homeless artists and formerly chronically homeless artists. There's just an extraordinary amount of gifts, and we're wasting those gifts and talents by allowing them to wallow on our respective streets.
For sure, for sure. Now, you made quite a huge jump in your career. I know it was a gradual transition, but you went from being quite a successful real estate developer into this game. So, what brought about this this transition? How does someone go from doing that to what you're currently doing?
Well, I was uh, pretty engrossed in that industry, and but I went on a men's retreat back in 1996 that had a tremendous impact on my life. And I came out of that retreat, and I was just asking a simple question: God, what do you want me to do? I wasn't asking God to get me out of uh, my career. I was just direct me to do some things that would be pleasing to you, God. And uh, and in very small ways, God started pointing me into these little directions uh, that led to the idea to go out and purchase a catering truck and go out on the streets and feed the homeless. Uh, then that led to a street retreat. I'm doing one next week. I've done many, many. We'll spend 2 nights on the streets next week, and in this process, I began to develop pretty deep relationships with the men and women that were on the streets. And then I got the idea in 2004 to go buy this RV, and then that gave me the idea to build an RV park as a real estate guy. And all along, I was falling more and more in love with God first, but with the people that He created: the crackheads, the glue sniffers, the prostitutes, the heroin junkies, the convicted criminals. Um, and I thought we could build a community like an RV park uh, to house them and become even a deeper part of their life. So it was slow, uh, yet meaningful steps along the journey that have put me in the place that I currently sit. So
Did part of this come to you in a vision? Like you actually at one point saw the truck. Was this a common occurrence for you? Had this happened before, or was there something different about this one?
No, it was something profoundly different. My wife and I were having coffee with a girlfriend of ours, and she was telling us about a ministry in Corpus Christi, Texas, on the coast here of Texas, uh, where on cold winter nights, multiple churches would come together and pool their resources and take out to the men and women that were on the streets of Corpus on, relatively cold winter nights. And at that moment, out of my subconscious mind flows into my conscious mind the image of this catering truck that we're now very well known for. We have a bunch of them, and I couldn't get that idea off my mind. I have no doubt that that was providential. I had no doubt that God was driving that bus, and I know that God knew that the timing was right to put that kind of idea, that entrepreneurial idea, into my head. It just wouldn't go away. So, and here we are. Yeah.
It's incredible where it's led to. And you have this philosophy, just say yes. And this is just being open to what's presented to you and following the line.
Yeah. Yeah. We actually call it yes and originally it was just say yes, say yes. God's always communicating with all of us. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. He's also telling you not to do things. He's telling you not to do things, even though you're going to go and do those things. So um, that's the life that all of us live for, because I think God is there and always there to communicate and give us the opportunity to move, um, in His direction. So yeah.
How would you compare your inner subjective experience of life now on a day-to-day basis compared with when you were doing the real estate work? Is there a difference, or is it very much the same?
Well, my fulfillment in life today is far greater uh, than it ever was and would have been had I continued along that track. I'm still a business guy and an entrepreneur, and I'm driven by those characteristics. And I'm a networker and I'm a promoter, and I still get to do those things, but I get to do those things uh, for nearly the exclusive benefit of the kingdom of God. Whereas, all of my work was centered around me, myself, and I uh, back in the old days. So um, I get to live out the giftings that God blessed me with, but for a much greater purpose.
Amazing. And what do you think of there's a Jungian psychologist called James Hollis, and he has this theory that there are two halves of life. The first half is about creating a foundation for yourself, having a solid base. You've got your family, you've got a good income, um, you're in a good place mentally, etc., etc. And then once those needs are met, there's a second half where it's about contribution and it's about serving something bigger than yourself. Do you think that's a fair way to look at the world, or would you say you should immediately just go into the contribution side of things?
I would be more of an encourager on the contribution uh, side of things, as opposed to what you know. I think there's a lot of confusion uh, in all of our lives on what fulfillment looks like to us. When are we satisfied? Are we satisfied uh, with a two-bedroom, two-bath home, or does our satisfaction come with a 25-bedroom, 25-bath home? Um, so um, I think that we have to raise our children, we have to raise our families, and we have to live our lives as contributors, profound contributors to the community that we live in. And so I would highly recommend that people begin right away living that life. And uh, God God will look. Well, you'll end up needing what it is that you need. You could be called into the Mother Teresa world where it's she's going to absolutely live in clear poverty. Um, or I don't live in poverty. I make a pretty decent living uh, here at Mobile Loaves and Fishes. It took a lot of sacrifice to get here, uh, but I cannot claim that I suffer in any way. So I would start young. That's what I would do.
Okay, I like that. I like that. Do you? So you do the Camino de Santiago. You've done it a couple of times now, at least I'd say. What are some of the key things you've learned from being over there and having that experience? Like you've done the full thing, the full 6 weeks, the Camino Frances.
Yeah, yeah. So I've done the 500 miles. Been on the Camino Frances twice. This next year we're doing the Camino Portuguese. Um, we did the original Camino to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Mobile Loaves and Fishes to give Thanksgiving to God for doing what He's done uh, uh, through us and through this organization. And uh, now I'm a Camino junkie, and I love being there, and I'm gonna I'm gonna yeah, I mean, at least every couple of years, fly over there and do something on the Camino. I don't know that I'll ever do, and I might. It just to do the 500 from Saint Jean Pied de Port to Santiago de Compostela is 6 plus weeks. You you know, and depending on how fast you go, and uh, I learned a lot from my first Camino. You know, I was a backcountry mountain backpacker, and so you're let's go, man. And the Camino is not meant for that, in my humble opinion. Although people attack it that well, and I did, and I learned on that first one how to saunter instead of hike. So the second time I went, uh, was much slower. And today, like, my plan for the Portuguese is, our average daily mileage will be 12 miles. Uh, uh, you know, which is very doable uh, and far more enjoyable for me. And but as I've learned, you do you. You hike your own Camino. Um, this is look, the first one we stayed in nice hotels along the way. The next time I went, I stayed mostly in the albergues, and those were awesome. And that'll be my mo when I go back. Is and I'll do the albergues, and then every 4 or 5 days or so we'll pop a hotel. Uh, yeah. How about you?
I've done it probably twice a year the past I think 3 years, but I'm only tackling it a week at a time. I've done parts of the Portuguese way. I've done parts of the Francaise. For me, it's a great way to reset and just get back to basics. Like in the morning, all you have to worry about is getting up and getting to the next place, and maybe getting a couple of stops along the way. And the people you meet, the conversations you have, like it's magic. It's so simple, but it's beautiful. I think everybody should do it.
Yeah, I can't wait. And so even on the Francaise, it's there are certain sections that I want to go back to, and and um, and visit these places. And yeah,
Anywhere in particular? Just curious.
well, Osabrero would be a great one, and there's a chapel up there. St. Francis of Assisi had journeyed up to Osabrero, and there's a Eucharistic miracle that happened. And it's a neat little town, on the top of this mountain. That would be cool to go back to. Uh, so that kind of thing, I'd probably start. Uh, like right before Astorga, there's Hospital. There's this town with this awesome bridge, and maybe walk from there all the way into Santiago. That'd be about 150, maybe 200 miles. That you could do that in a couple of weeks, type of deal. They've changed how you get to Compostela now. So you just need to do the 100 kilometers. You probably read that, and I think it's going to minimize the heavy crowds from Sarria uh, into Santiago, and make that. But there's some towns along that route that I had just a great time in. Little bitty spots, love to go back to.
For sure, for sure. I could probably talk to you about this for the rest of the conversation, but there's other maybe more important issues I want to get your thoughts on. So you have now replicators, people that have taken a similar model and done it in other parts of the US. Um, has anyone done that in Europe yet? Or is it more only in the US?
No, no, not that I'm aware of. There've been a couple of European folks here. Um, yeah, I just hadn't seen it, and what's really key about what we do is the philosophy of community, as opposed to how we do the real estate. And so we have symposiums that we do twice a year here, 2.5 days. People can fly in and be immersed in our philosophy, and how you pull that philosophy off from a European perspective. Europe, uh, America is barely even a newborn child, you know, in the world to Europe, and uh, and to me, it's amazing to go to Europe and be in places where uh, it was built around human beings entirely. That's another thing that I love about the Camino and walking from town to town, is that uh, the human side of that. And a lot of European cities are that way. And how do you replicate community there could be very different than how you replicate community here in the US.
Interesting. And whenever people do come to these symposiums, what are the key things you're teaching? What are the key aspects of the philosophy that you really want to get across?
Um, it's a lot of it is, I mean, you're not going to walk away with a playbook to take back to go and replicate. Um, you're going to learn a lot about the 8 marks of home that uh, I talked about earlier. There's a whole session on that. Uh, I do a piece called "The Gospel Con Carne," which is built around the human connectedness and the value of the human to human, heart to heart connection, and how um, your encounter with Christ um, is really profound through the woundedness of the world. We've we've kind of made Christ into a T-shirt, jewelry, I Heart Jesus ball cap versus um, that pungent smell of urine and feces and crack cocaine and multi-day old body odor that you find when you go out on the streets. And it's really trying to reorient people to what we should be attracted to. And we should be attracted to that smell, but the people that have that bouquet. We call that smell the bouquet of Christ, and so it's a lot about that. But we also get into uh, property management and how to raise money, and a lot of the transactional side of that, but from a relational point of view.
Beautiful, beautiful. Um, Imagine that we were having this conversation in the year 2100 and homelessness is no longer an issue. What are the key things that would need to have changed in our society for that to be a reality?
Well, the world would not exist at that point in time, and humanity has been completely destroyed, and we're actually up in heaven. So that'll be pretty awesome.
Right, okay.
Nothing is going to change. Nothing has ever changed. Um, we humans are a perverted species, and until that perversion ends in its entirety, uh, we are going to be stuck uh, with this here on Earth. It's just not going to change. So you can go back into any amount of history from a timeline point of view that you want to, and the world is exactly the same. It's violent. It's selfish. Uh, and there would have to be a wholesale change um, in the human person universally uh, for that to change. And that's not a hopeless comment. That's a comment that's just real. Uh, and so what we should be hoping for is how do more of us get in the game? The harvest is plenty, but the workers are few, and we need more workers willing to work the vineyard of humanity um, in order to improve and mitigate what we see. We don't believe in solutions; we believe in mitigation. Um, we can make this small. Look, uh, prior to the 1970s and 80s, this pandemic didn't exist the way that it exists today. Um, and it's this profound catastrophic loss of family. We're going to have to culturally uh, re-energize family uh, uh, to be far more valuable. We're going to have to evangelize how important mothers and fathers are in the equation of raising our children. Um, and when there's a catastrophic breakdown, like David Brooks in that article, we have to figure out how the Forge family comes in and begins to work on that. But I've got zero hope, and that's not a hopeless feeling. I'm completely optimistic about the world that we live in. But if you think we're going to change wars and poverty and uh, all that, uh, uh, I don't see that happening. There will be poor people.
Okay. Okay. And your view on human nature, you mentioned we're we're a perverted species there. What is your view on human nature? Are we good? Like, are we predominantly good? Or are we predominantly evil? Like, what's your thoughts on the basics of who we are, the fabric of our being?
Well, we all we all have the tendency. I think we all have the tendency toward good and evil. Uh, and I believe in Satan. I believe in the devil, but I also believe that the devil works particularly well through each of us. Um, and so we have that propensity, uh, you know, for evil. And you know what is actually one's evil might be another's peace. And America is a nation that talks about peace through strength. So we have the largest military in the world with more nuclear armaments and more nuclear submarines and aircraft carriers and jet. You know what I mean? And uh, yeah, where does that all fit? Uh, so it's I think we're all capable and of both sides of that equation. And if, if we're attacked internally, uh, say Russia wanted to come over here and attack us, which I don't believe they would, um, uh, we're gonna unleash Armageddon. And look, I think you guys, would feel the same way, man. It's like, you know, when the UK was battling Germany, was Ireland much involved at that period of time? I'm not that familiar with the Irish history of.
It's complicated because Ireland and England were at war for around 800 years before that, and there was always a saying in Ireland that England's foe is Ireland's friend, or something along those lines. So until we figured out what was actually going on in Germany, the Irish, a lot of them would have actually were hoping for the British to be defeated in that. But then, whenever it came out about the concentration camps, etc., there was obviously a massive turnaround. But yeah, the Irish and English haven't historically got on that well.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But the last question, I know you've got to go, so just quickly, you mentioned there that there's not enough workers in the vineyard, and what we should really be doing is trying to get more people doing this kind of work and all the rest. So I don't know if you've grandkids or not, but if your grandkids came to you and said, Alan, what are the key things I should be aiming for if I want to live a good life? What are the key things I should be setting my sights on?
Well, I would tell them to put God first in everything that they ever do, and as a Christian, profoundly do that. Uh, And then I think your work ethic is, I would instill, we instilled a pretty strong work ethic in our children as they grew up. And they're all hard workers today. So I would instill a very strong work ethic uh, uh, in them. Uh, and then a very strong commitment to family. Uh, I mean, I'm in Austin, Texas. They're not going to find their nirvana in Seattle, Washington. Uh, the closer they are to family, the better they are. We have all of our children that live within 15 minutes of where we are, right here, and that's been a real blessing for us. So it'd be those kind of things that I would highly recommend. God first, family second, and become an active part of your community, man. It's the community needs you. Bend over and pick up some trash. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to help you. Good exercise.
For sure, for sure. Right. I'll let you go. You're a force of nature. It's a real privilege to get to spend this time with you, and I want to wish you the best with everything you're doing going forward. And I'll be following. All right.
Well, next time you're in Austin, Texas to do a run or something, give us a shout. Love to give you a tour here.
I definitely will. All right. Thanks very much, Alan. All the best.
Yeah, God bless, man. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, you might also enjoy getting our 7 Insights newsletter. This is a once per month email where I share 7 of the most valuable insights I've uncovered in the previous 30 days. It includes book, podcast, and documentary recommendations, as well as questions and quotes specifically curated to help you live a more creative, intentional, and meaningful life. It currently goes out to over 50,000 subscribers each month, and if you're interested in joining them, you can sign up at 7insights.org.